Welcome back to the Learner Insights. I'm your host, and today we are diving into one of the most transformative skills you can develop as an academic researcher or PhD student: identifying and articulating research gaps. Here is the truth: every groundbreaking discovery starts with a simple question about something nobody has fully explored, every published paper addressing something important exists because someone identified a gap in knowledge. And today you're going to learn exactly how to spot those gaps, understand why they matter, and turn them into your unique contribution to your field. Whether you're starting your dissertation, planning your next research project, or wondering where your intellectual impact will come from, this lesson is for you. Imagine you're exploring a vast landscape of academic knowledge. Picture papers and research scattered across this terrain, books, studies, findings, all creating a detailed map of what we know. But then you notice something striking. There's a visible gap, a white space on the map, a place where the knowledge ends and questions begin. That gap, that's not a problem, that's your opportunity. What is a research gap? A research gap is fundamentally an area where existing studies are insufficient, contradictory, or entirely non-existent. Think of it as the white space on an academic map, the unexplored territory where knowledge stops and questions begin. It's the unexplored territory where knowledge stops and curiosity begins. When you identify and address a genuine gap, you're not just conducting research, you're advancing the collective knowledge of your field. Think about the researchers whose work you admire. Their impact came from identifying something nobody had fully explored. Your impact will come from the same process. Not all gaps are created equal. Understanding the different types helps you recognize opportunities in every direction. Here are 5 distinct varieties of research gaps you'll encounter. Type 1: knowledge gaps. These are areas that have received no systematic investigation. Imagine a question that nobody has really studied yet. For instance, there are thousands of studies on how remote work affects productivity. But how does it specifically affect mentorship relationships in academic settings? Almost nobody has systematically investigated this. Knowledge gaps are often the most exciting because you're genuinely exploring new territory. Type 2: methodological gaps. Here, research exists, but it uses limited methods. Maybe every study on a topic relies on quantitative surveys, but what if you used qualitative interviews to reveal the underlying mechanisms? Methodological gaps mean you can ask the same fundamental question but through a different lens. Type 3: contextual gaps. This is when research exists but only in specific populations or places. Student motivation is well studied in Western universities, but what about non-Western educational contexts? When you explore how findings translate across contexts, you're making research more inclusive and globally applicable. Type 4: theoretical gaps. We might know that X predicts Y, but we don't know why or how. We lack the mechanism. For example, we know environmental consciousness predicts green purchasing, but what psychological or social processes drive this relationship? When you answer these how questions, you develop the theoretical understanding that transforms disconnected facts into coherent knowledge. And type 5: contradictory findings gaps. Sometimes different studies show opposite results. One study shows diversity helps team performance, while another shows it harms team cohesion. Your research opportunity is to understand when and why these differences occur. You not proving one side right, you re-identifying the conditions that make both true in their respective contexts. Let me show you how this works in practice with a real example: sustainable consumer behavior. Researchers have extensively examined how environmental consciousness predicts green purchasing. The literature is robust, with over 150 studies showing that people who care about the environment tend to buy green products. Sounds comprehensive, right? But here's what researchers hadn't fully explored. Why do consumers abandon green products? Many people revert to conventional products after 6 to 12 months. This wasn't being studied. If organizations want to build sustainable behavior that sticks, they need to understand abandonment and retention, not just initial adoption. That is a significant gap, and it represents a huge research opportunity. So how do you find these gaps when the literature is so overwhelming? The answer is strategic searching. First, choose your databases strategically. Use PubMed for biomedical research, Scopus for multidisciplinary work, and field-specific databases for everything else. This immediately narrows your search. Next, use Boolean logic. Don't search broadly for technology in classrooms. Search specifically digital literacy and secondary school and equity. Then narrow it even more, digital divide or technology access and high school or secondary and low income or disadvantaged and 20202025, example, education. Technology integration initial search. Technology in classrooms equals 47,000 results to broad narrowed search. Digital literacy and secondary school and equity equals 2,300 results better. Focused search, digital divide or technology access and high school or secondary and low income or disadvantaged and 20202025 equals 340 results. Manageable citation tracking. From these 340, identify the 5-10 most frequently cited papers, review their reference lists. Notice that papers from 2015 to 2017 consistently cite 3 seminal works by researchers X, Y, and Z. Read those seminal works. Synthesis finding. After this process, you notice that while extensive research addresses access to technology, only 12 papers examine pedagogical adaptation to technology in resource-limited settings. This is your gap. You move from thousands of results to a manageable set of highly relevant papers. And here's the game changer. Citation tracking. Find key papers in your area. Look at what they cite, that's the foundation. Then look at who cites them, that shows how the field evolved. The small isolated nodes in a citation map often represent the gaps where your opportunity lies. Here's another critical insight. A study's limitations section is a roadmap to research opportunities. When an author says their study was limited to 50 participants from a single organization, that's your cue to ask if the findings generalize. When they note their participants were exclusively from Western European countries, that's your chance to explore the topic in a non-Western context. A cross-sectional design is an invitation for you to conduct a longitudinal study. Every limitation transparently shows where your field needs more work. Read them as opportunity signals, and you'll see research directions everywhere. For major gaps, you can use systematic review frameworks like Prisma. This structured approach ensures you don't miss key literature and helps you visualize what is already been studied. You define your question, search systematically, select studies, extract data, and then synthesize your findings to identify what's missing. But remember, while tools can accelerate discovery, they don't replace deep, critical reading. A tool might tell you 50 papers exist on a topic, but only by reading them will you find out what truly remains unknown. Finally, a gap is only useful once you can articulate it as a sharp, specific research question. Vague ideas don't get funded, and they don't guide your research. You came here today seeking to advance your research. You leave with a framework for identifying meaningful gaps. Remember, your gap is your contribution. The gaps exist. They're waiting for the researcher you're becoming to explore them. This is the Learner Insights, where we educate, motivate, and elevate together. Subscribe for more lessons that will transform how you think about your education and your future. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next lesson.